really kind of spent the first 35, 40 years of my life driving myself into the ground by trying to be successful. Our traditional kind of business paradigm has been very yang driven, masculine, right? It's very directive, it's control based, it's a lot of structure systems, and that's great. And I did master a lot of that. And the work that I do with men and women is to activate more of that yin energy, which is the flow energy, it's the receptive energy, it's magnetic. A lot of the marketing strategies and branding is that we work with people on is how to draw in your audience rather than how to go after them and target them and, that more pushy approach. If that's how you want to live, what's the business model that aligns with your personality and with your lifestyle?
All right, welcome everybody to the Ageless Future Podcast. This is your host today, Cade Archibald, and I am joined with an amazing guest today, Michelle Villalobos. She's a transformational business mentor and alignment strategist who helps visionary leaders step into their deeper self-expression, soulful success, and authentic impact. Without sacrificing their well-being, which I love. Like, you got to have some well-being with some good business. So for over 17 years, Michelle's guided entrepreneurs, speakers, and change makers to align what they do with who they are truly, so they can activate their inner superstar and build magnetic, mission-driven businesses. So awesome, super powerful individual, and I love working with Michelle. She's been incredible, and I know she's gone on kind of her own health journey. But welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you, Cade.
Really excited to have you on. So, tell me a little bit about kind of what's your origin story, or how did you start this?
Well, I think like a lot of people that probably listen to this show, because I'm an entrepreneur and I imagine a lot of your people are too. I started out as quite an overachiever in life. I kind of did the workaholism thing, trying to make myself happy and fulfilled by achieving more success. And where that left me about 10, 12 years ago was really burnt out. And I say that really with the, I was truly ill. I had autoimmune stuff. I had rashes all over my body. I was anxious, neurological stuff. And so I really kind of spent the first 35, 40 years of my life driving myself into the ground by trying to be successful. And then the last 10, 12 years, I've spent sort of turning all that back around, getting healthy, getting fulfilled from the inside out. And then instead of trying for my business to be what fulfills me, to become a fulfilled and happy person, and then bring that to the business and to my clients. And so it's a real kind of like turning on its head of the old paradigm of the way I was raised. And a lot of us were, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's so often that, and even today, a lot of kind of the entrepreneurial speak is like hustle and work hard, and you got to put in the hours, and it's, it can be so demanding. I love how you kind of flip that to like you are already fulfilled. So let's talk a little bit about what you do to maybe. I know a lot of our listeners are really interested in some of the health aspects. Anything health-wise that was really impactful on you and kind of setting up your habit structure or anything there?
Yeah, I would say even more impactful than anything else I've done was getting my mindset straight and really addressing some of the deeper patterns and behaviors and beliefs that I had adopted since childhood. And, some of the, even to use the word trauma, which may be a little bit overused in this day and age, although I'll say that, a lot of times what's traumatic for a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old would seem like no big deal to an adult. And so, I don't know about you. I was raised in the 80s where like our parents, they make fun, like they didn't know where we were at 10 o'clock in the evening, right? They needed a TV commercial to remind them to look for us. But like I was raised without a lot of, and my parents did the best they could and I adore them. And they weren't like nurturing parents who were really very well versed in how to take care of a child's emotional needs. My parents are Cuban immigrants. They had bigger fish to fry than coddling me as a baby. But what that created was a lot of maladaptive behaviors to try to get, love and connection. And so I would say that the biggest things that I did for my health was address some of that emotional immaturity, some of those maladaptive patterns to get my needs met, the attachment behaviors and things like that. So I would say that coupled with, meditation, mindset work, excavating some of those patterns and behaviors and really being honest with myself about them. That was the biggest work. And that kind of created the space for really honoring myself by investing in health and self-care in new ways that I never would have before.
Yeah, beautiful. So, really get your head right is step one. Great. Well, and so one of the things that you do is you do these immersive retreats with your kind of intuitive frameworks. It's called the Big Back End. So tell us a little bit about what that is. It looks like you've worked with some really iconic brands like American Express, Audi, Lloyd's of London. You've been featured in Forbes, CNN, some really, really amazing things you've done there.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what I specialize in, kind of the thread through everything, is how to create transformational gatherings, how to connect in community and design and lead some sort of transformational experience for people. And ideally one that leads into a longer term relationship. And that can be leveraged as a business, which I've done and which I help clients do. And it can also be for any purpose, right? Like if we're gathering to create some sort of transformation, why would we then just leave and not look back, right? My whole thing is that's the foundation for some long-term community culture of some sort, that we have a vision. And so bringing people together and keeping them connected for the long haul is good business, and it's good humanity too.
Amazing. So, and I know we've talked a little bit about it. So you bring these amazing entrepreneurs and leaders together and just create a really cool experience. Yeah, love that. So, let's talk maybe a little on. I'm curious. So it's called the Superstar Activator. So you put together the 7-step superstar business model for creating stable, scalable, sustainable business. And I like that when what you're selling is you. So tell me a little bit about what's the 7-step super. Can you share that? Is that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it starts with, if you think about it, like, and I know that you all have heard this analogy before, but like the idea of an iceberg, right? That the bulk of the iceberg is underwater. What we see is just the tip of the iceberg. And that's kind of how I see like business and branding, which is where I got my start. The brand, the name of your company, the logo, the colors, that's all what's visible. That's the tip of the iceberg. But really what's underneath is what creates your vision and your mission. So really at the very most foundational level of that is identity. It's like, who are you? Who do you see yourself as in the world? Like, who are you going to be for the world? And then from that sense of self and identity and mission and purpose, okay, then from there, let's look at, well, how do I want to live my life? Right. And being intentionally creative about, lifestyle. And do I want to travel? Do I not want to travel? Do I want to, live in the countryside, or do I want to live in a bustling city? Like all these inquiries about how we want to live sit right on top of the identity, because they're so closely related with who we are. And then from there, the next question that I look at is like, well, if that's how you want to live, what's the business model that aligns with your personality and with your lifestyle? Right? What makes sense for you? Like in my case, and a lot of my clients, we lead online group coaching and, community programs. Why? Because we're people. We like humans, and we like to connect and interact and lead transformational events. And I lead them in person and online. And so from that, once we have a clarity of, okay, well, here's the business model that makes sense for me. How am I going to present that model and that business offering to the world? That's our brand. And that's the beginning of where things start to like be more visible to the outside world. From branding, we want to look at marketing. How am I continuously driving that message out into the world so that my ideal clients are seeing it on an ongoing basis? And then obviously, how am I then calling those people back in? What's the sales process? How do I convert people into clients? And then ultimately, how do I scale this operation? What's a way that this can grow beyond, like in my case, how does it grow beyond just me, so I don't have to constantly be the one doing everything? So that's kind of the 7 steps to becoming a more scalable model when it's built around you and your gifts and your expertise.
And so it looks, so you have this framework, and then was there maybe what's kind of the back end, or have you always been a like entrepreneur, or did you kind of start off in maybe like a traditional 9 to 5, or what did that look like? I'm just curious how you got to this.
Yeah, I like a lot of people. I mean, I followed a pretty prescribed path at first. I went to a really good college, got straight A's, got a double major, went to work for the man, corporate, New York City, sales, and just worked my way up that grind, and ended up becoming the associate publisher of a fashion magazine down in Miami Beach, and I, was partying with celebrities, and I was out all the time, and I was at these big parties, and it was, from the outside looking in, I had it made, and I was really depressed. And in hindsight, I look back, and I'm even though I had the money and the cars and the parties and all the things, I was drinking really heavily. And I think my sense now looking back is because of what I call divine dissonance, which is the empty feeling you have when you're not in alignment with what you're really meant to do, with your dharma, with your calling. And so the more I got off track, the worse I felt, and no amount of money or status could fill that hole. So I left. I became an entrepreneur thinking, without doing a lot of the inner work, and that it was even worse. It was harder, and I stopped making the money. So then I didn't even have that. So it took a few years to like figure it all out. It took like a good 7 or 8 years just to kind of get myself into alignment and start down this new path. So it took time.
Wow. Well, that's got to be that's always really intimidating to take that leap of like, where do I go? I know I'm not happy with my current situation. And I think, whether it's career wise or relationship wise, those are always like some big friction points, and usually transformational points as well.
Oh yeah.
That's that's uh that's cool. So kind of developed from there. What's so if maybe there's some listeners here that are wondering about this, the superstar activator community and what that looks like. I know you do these workshops and events and things. Do you have anything like that coming up, or what do you? What,
Yeah. Well, 3 times a year, I do something called the business breakthrough, and I work with people who want to have a business with a back end, some sort of community driven mastermind group program or group coaching program or something that has like long-term potential where people are staying in it ideally for years and years, and that it's predicated on, or that it's kind of driven by transformational events, transformational gatherings, retreats, intensives, things like that. So I work with, those are the kind of clients I work with. And then 3 times a year, we gather and we work on, new marketing strategies, business models, revenue streams, like, up leveling and optimizing their businesses. I do that 3 times a year. And that's generally the way in the door, the way most people start working with me.
Awesome. I love that. So you probably have some pretty wild stories of like big transformations, or someone just coming to the realization of kind of who they are and what they want to be. Anything that would be interesting to share? What's kind of like your favorite like success story, or maybe not success,
Yeah.
someone coming to some realization?
I mean, I think some of the most fulfilling things that I've witnessed are when, yeah, like you just said, when somebody comes into the new awareness of who they are and who they could be. So that's really powerful. I mean, a lot of the work we do is around helping people unfreeze their self-concept. So a lot of times we freeze ourselves in certain identities, like, oh, I am this, or I have that. I'll use an example like, I have ADHD, or I am, a mess, or,
I have autoimmunity.
I have autoimmunity. It works with health too. It's like like freezing ourselves into these the language is a way that we freeze ourselves in reality. And we won't even get into the quantum physics of all that, of like collapsing into matter. But I think one of the coolest things that happens regularly enough that I'm no longer surprised, but I'm still in awe, is when people are like, wait, maybe I'm not that. What if I'm not, like, and then the opportunity to be something completely different emerges. And that's really exciting. And that's where like new opportunities really start to unlock for people, because a lot of times that self-image, that self-concept is the biggest thing in the way of them and what they desire.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true, and it's so applicable in health too. We see it all the time as someone comes in, they've been diagnosed with whether it's autoimmunity, sometimes it's cancer, like all
Right.
these different things, and you kind of like take on that identity. It's like that you get stuck in this kind of box of this is me, and it's almost like the self-fulfilling prophecy of like until you can see outside of that box, it's really difficult to get out of any condition or disease. And I think at East West, we try not to even like, we don't give a diagnosis because that's not who that person is. It's just, hey, here's what's underlying, what's impacting different things, and then let's figure out how we can maybe reverse that and get the right ingredients internally and externally to when I formulate that. Yeah, that's it's so powerful when someone realizes and recognizes that, oh, I don't have to be that person anymore. That's not my identity. My condition or my disease is not my identity. Or yeah, very cool. Well, yeah, what's so you any particular businesses? I know you work probably a lot with like women's empowerment and leadership there. Um, uh, so is that one that you work from like a feminine energetic rather than the masculine one? So maybe expound on that or help me understand what that.
Yeah, and I don't just work with women. I work a lot with the what we call like the yin energy that we
Yeah,
all have access to. And so our traditional kind of business paradigm has been very yang driven,
yeah,
masculine, right? It's very directive, it's control based, it's a lot of structure systems, and that's great. And I luckily did master a lot of that or have mastered a lot of that. And the work that I do with men and women is to activate more of that yin energy, which is the flow energy, it's the receptive energy, it's magnetic. If you think about, like in the purely most biological sense, right? Like eggs and sperm, right? The frequency of sperm is much more competitive and fast paced. And that's like the masculine, business environment. I'm the egg is more of the receptive energy. The egg just kind of sits there and says, come to me. And that's what happens, right? And so in business, both men and women, we can all activate that. The balance, the real miracle of life comes from the joining of the two energies, not from either or. And so, a lot of the marketing strategies and branding is that we work with people on is how to draw in your audience rather than how to go after them and target them and that more pushy approach.
I love that. Yeah, you get um yeah, you really want to just attract who you're looking for. That's
Right.
beautiful. Yeah, very, very cool. That's an interesting insight. I've never thought of it that way as far as like the sperm and the egg, but it makes complete sense. Yeah, it's very yin and yang and completely different energies. And I think, males have that masculine and feminine energy, and it goes both ways there.
Yeah. And I really, I think a business that in this modern, especially as we're evolving this more modern era, a business that's only all one way is not going to thrive as much as a business that can really embrace and transcend the polarity of one or the other.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. Well, amazing what you've done and what you've created. Anything that you've been learning recently, or something new that you think is insightful to share with the community?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that anyone who's looking to, that wellness is not just in the body, right? It's all aspects of our lives. And the more we show up whole, healed, well, the more we're able to lead and serve and love the people in our lives. So I think that it's just so important to do the work that you do together with the work that I do, that they're very synergistic. And, in my own life, doing one without the other has never been as effective as doing it all together. So, for me, it's the mindfulness every day, it's the emotional work, it's the mindset work together with the physical, biological, physiological, and marrying all. It's all part of one thing. And we have this kind of Western, I guess, paradigm of like things being separate and disparate. And it's about, really integration of all of it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's not really possible to run a double blind placebo study on like all these little nuances. They all are interactive together, and that's what I love about kind of we bringing in more maybe Eastern philosophy or just holistic philosophy as opposed to just the Western side of medicine, because we have tried to be, you know, isolating on, okay, someone has one condition and here's a medication that could potentially fix that. Whereas, man, there's just this very holistic view of everything. So
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank
Well,
you.
so what's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to learn more, or maybe take advantage of is it the big back end is where they would start, or what
I'd
the kind of the
say if anything has resonated with them, probably the best way to connect would be to start with YouTube. I have about 742 videos on YouTube
nice.
with a variety. I mean, everything that I know is there information wise. And then if that's, that'll take you down rabbit holes, freebies and roadmaps and all sorts of goodies that people can benefit from for free.
Yeah, I got great stuff on YouTube. So that's Superstar Activator on YouTube as well as Instagram. You can find her on LinkedIn at Michelle Villalobos. And Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show and joining us today. It's been amazing. And for those of you listeners out there, if you know of anyone that could benefit from this message and what we're doing here at Ageless Future, please share this, and hopefully you could give us a review as well. Michelle, thank you so much for joining the show. You have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you.
Thanks.